ODM had a bad day yesterday. They were visiting Kibera, and of course these are the backyards of Raila, including Kamkunji, in a convoy that included the older members of the party that right now feels like Odinga still needs to be their party leader, irrespective of all these cries and calls, of course, that are coming from the younger part of the party who feels like now it's time to have a Joshua and not a Moses or a Moses age mate anymore after Moses is already dead. But for the ODM older members, because that is now how they have divided themselves, or rather the ODM members of the broad-based arrangement, because they are supporters, older members of the ODM party who support the younger cohort, and of course there are younger members, a few of the ODM party who support the older cohort. That is just the nature of politics. You can't control it. So a better distinction would be the members of the ODM party that affiliate themselves with the broad-based arrangement yesterday had a session in Kamukunji and in Kibera area, and the members of the ODM party that are against the broad-based arrangement, including the Secretary General of the party, missed this particular event. Now, the comment section, while this event was happening live, because we followed it even if we couldn't shoot on it for reasons that we have detailed in the other episode, as we followed it, one of the key things that was happening in the comment section is that individuals were saying that the ODM party is dead. Now, in this particular coverage of the People's Mirror, we want to put a sections of that particular rally yesterday before the Mirror, so that we take a look and you decide and you let us know through the comment section whether or not you think that the ODM party is dead. But first, I want to start from a point where they were crowning Odinga as the head of the party from the Kibera area, which was full of noise, full of chaos, no order. It wouldn't have been done this way if Raila was the guy in the center. But let's first take a look and hear what they did before we make comments.
Tupatie masikio kidogo, tuko na sherehe hapa kidogo ya kukaribisha party leader wetu Mheshimiwa Daktari Odinga, na mimi kama secretary ya wazee elders Nairobi, tunataka mkubwa wetu wa party leader ya ODM pamoja mkubwa wa Jaluo wote hapa Nairobi. Hiyo ndio kwa sababu tumekuja hapa kwa haraka. Kwa majina naitwa Steven Bot, wengi wenu mnanijua, uzee siku hizi imeniingia. Nitaita
Okay, so even before we go deeper into what they were doing, let's just start from that particular beat, ladies and gentlemen. That particular beat alone shows you disorganization, lack of connection with the people, and desire to maintain something that does not exist anymore. Let's start with connection with the people. The Honorable Speaker starts by saying, "Mtupatie masikio tafadhali." There is no rally, of course, that Raila held in Kibera where he was asking Kibera people to listen to him. Whenever he stepped in Kibera, it was always a storm, moving the crowd one after the other towards his ideals, and the crowd would cheer in and cheer out even if Raila was not saying anything sensible. There is no single day that Baba stood in Kibera and asked them to give him a listening ear. Now he's talking about sherehe yenye wako nayo for party leader. Sherehe gani? Uko na sherehe na watu waoni, wewe penye ndo unapiga hiyo sherehe. He says his name is Stephen something, and these days old age has walken into him. Now this old age story is very important for the ODM party and at that particular juncture, because one of the things that the ODM party is being attacked for is the old reins holding into these particular positions when the new people, the young people, are fit enough to actually do it. Later on, when we were putting before the Mirror the statements that were made by Babu Win on this particular TV interview at Citizen TV, of course, with the Honorable yet again Jeff Koinange, you'd see that one thing that he was saying is that even if Moses was walking away and leaving the Israelites, Moses did not go for an elderly man like himself to lead the Israelites, but of course he went straight to a young person being Joshua and asked Joshua now to lead the Israelites to this particular dream Canaan. While he was talking about this, Baba Win was trying to portray the image that the young person right now might have the vision And of course, the elderly member will have the dream. And of course, in the dream, you must only have a dream when you're sleeping, but a vision, you have a vision when you are active, awake, and working. And so that's why he's saying that whereas Raila might have created a very good solid ground to lead the ODM party and its supporters into this particular land of Canaan, it's upon now the young people to ensure that that dreams comes true. But if the young people are not given mandate to do that, then according to Babu Owino, he feels that of course people will be shifted from Canaan to Singapore, a story that we will detail shortly after this. So this guy, whoever he is, the older guy, was trying to coronate the leadership of Odinga and stamp it within the Kibera area, where ODM leaders actually went to engage the Kibera community. Let's see how he did.
Basi nitachukua tu chairman ya Luo elders of sio tu wanapanda hawapandi, we do it straight away. Yeah. Haya, tutaanza tu sherehe mara moja juu ya wakati. Nimewasalimu wote kwa niaba ya officials wa Council Elders of Nairobi. Mumewasalimu?
No response. He calls upon the people. He's saying he's greeting them on behalf of the elders of the lower nations of Nairobi, and it seems like the crowd is so disconnected with that particular greeting that they don't even reply to it. So tell me in the comment section, when did Raila actually call, or Raila's colleagues while Raila was still alive call for a greeting from the elderly people to the younger people, and it was not received with such whim? Now the truth is the ODM party is divided. It is divided between the support of the broad-based arrangement. It is divided between the younger people, and as the younger people are continually being put outside of this particular mathematics and calculation just because they are young in that particular spectrum, the reality is now knocking on the doors of the ODM party that without this particular cohort of the younger generation that Raila had built within that particular camp, even the older members of this party who are now serving within the broad-based arrangement might not hold this party to end. And so if a reply to a greeting could not be made efficient in that arrangement, then what else could be? Let's go a little deep into what they did after that.
Asanteni. Haya, mara moja tunachukua hii uskani kumuita mkubwa wetu party leader Daktari Odinga. Karibu kwenye kiti. Songa nyuma yake ndio picha mmuone. Haya, ndio huyo daktari anakalia kiti ya miguu tatu. Ngoja. Songa nyuma yake. Haya.
Right. So he sat and they started their celebration, which was very, very interesting. And after celebration, this is the interesting part. They didn't want Oburu to actually speak. That was the most interesting part of it. They did not want Oburu to speak. And Oburu himself had to request that, is it not my time now to speak? Now, why didn't they want the party leader of the party to speak if the party leader himself now professes himself as the fit candidate to take on President Ruto or to represent the ODM banner as a presidential candidate in 2027? The reason being, he's sick, he's weak, he's old. Now, we don't know much about his health because we don't have medical records to his health, but he's old, we know that for a fact. And so when he was in this particular place and these guys were saying, oh no, don't give this gentleman an opportunity to stand too long. When he was holding the spear, he could hold it, but they were saying no, he should not demonstrate with the spear because of course it would harm someone in this particular space. But the truth of it is that the spear would not have harmed anyone if it was being held by strong fingers. Then shortly they gave him the walking stick to hold, and after that they could not let him even shout the Raila's slang of Joey. They shouted it for him. Then they asked him to sit down and not speak, and Odinga had to defend himself and be like, it's my time, why don't you just give me time to speak? And I want to capture that place, even though he said it in dialect. I want to capture that part of his speech when he was begging these particular individuals who do not have any leadership within the ODM party to speak in an ODM engagement with the community forum in Kibera. Laughable.
Nawati tija. Sejabani tiyo kuna chandi. Allah. Ero. Jomoko dogeria kaka to kimwadwa timone dako timie. Bas.
You see, at that point alone, it's a fight. It's a fight between silent voices on the background saying, man, just go direct and do whatever you have to do. And this gentleman who he earlier introduced as Stephen Mboch, or rather introduced himself, now forgets that he's actually holding the microphone and deviates from the script and attacks that individual in the backyard, telling him that while you are doing your role, I didn't interrupt you, let me do my role. So Odinga is there just like a puppet, listening to this particular altercation going on and the limelight being taken away from him to those particular arguments being made publicly through, of course, a public address system without doing anything. Now, let us still just keep it on until we hear where Oburu himself was begging to speak in an engagement where he was the party leader.
Bwana Ogai mkabidhi party leader kofia ya kulinda sisi kwa chama ya ODM, akiwa kiongozi wetu, mzee wetu ya Ujaluo. Haya, ndio huyo anavalishwa kofia ya uongozi ya Wajaluo na chama party leader ya ODM. Tena amesimama kama mkubwa Luo Council of Elders Nairobi. Ya pili ni kabidhi shika hii kwanza. Wapi ile quote? Aya, hapa nakabidhiwa, hiyo inaitwa quote. Inaitwa quote. Hiyo inaitwa kumba, hilo mwana kumba kidoluo. Aya, Jadongo Buru osa yodo kumba. Ya pili anapewa mkuki, na sitamruhusa demonstrate hapa kwa ajili inaweza kuleta ajali. Haya, ndio huyo amekabadhiwa na mkuki, na hiyo ndiyo ngao ya kutulinda katika hili kiti. Joey amesema lazima Joey. Asante sana jadwongo pengero kawana ina. Haya, leta nini? Kwaje tangazo. Ya tatu akabidhiwa na mkwaju.
Okay, so asijaribu hapa inaweza leta ajali. Of course they understand that Oburu holding that spear might leave the hands of the able youth leader and the party leader of the ODM party and might cause very disastrous harm on the people around him. Very nice for the youth leader. Then he sang Joey on behalf of Oburu, of course, because the youth leader, of course, might not be too youthful to have sung that himself. And after that, the most interesting part is that he asked the party leader to just sit down and asked, of course, for the handler to be given to him to help him sit down. Now, that is what happened in the first few hours. Then the gentleman, whoever his name was, the way he introduced himself, went ahead to actually bypass the position of Oburu Odinga and give permission to another gentleman who is the head of, I don't know, the Council of Luo Elders in Nairobi or something. He made some speech and it was supposed to be the overall crowning speech to end everything. But after that speech was made, you could hear Oburu begging for time to make his own speech, wondering why all this was going on and he was not being given time to speak.
Okay, kadi wangu wewe. Takumea miazo leo muda los. Sawa. Ya urzo leo muda los. Sawa. Ongea kida gari ndo waka. Wewe. Okay. Basi kole ya na uru muda los.
That's it. So he asked them, isn't it my time now to speak? Then why don't you just give me time to speak? And they was like, yeah, just speak, big guy. And then he spoke, and then they're like, no, why don't you just make time for me so that I can actually speak? So they gave him time to speak, and I don't know whether you would even be interested to hear what he said, but we'll do it for you in case you're interested to hear what he said. The rest we might not put before the mirror. Of course, Simbareti was, of course, heckled down by an individual, and he started his speech by saying, toa vijana hapa wenye wanavuta bangi, just because he didn't like the statements that the youth was saying. So that was also not taken very kindly by the youth. I mean, you are speaking, we are telling you something that we don't agree with that you hold, and because the youth was speaking it in Kisii, Simbarati is from Kisii, so he understood what that youth was saying directly, and he pointed one youth saying, remove this Kisii guy from here, for actually speaking and going ahead to address the public. So I think politicians have some disease in their head. They think that when you are united together and we are speaking to you like in a big array, then it's easier than if I'm speaking and you're speaking back. The truth that politicians have not yet realized is that you cannot separate a tree from the forest, and so the forest might seem so connected together when you're addressing it like that, but when you walk in between each of those, it's a single tree that forms that forest, and their opinion matters to make that forest a forest. So singling out an individual is one part of deforestation that you can begin in front of your house saying the rest of the forest will be okay, but that alone will lead into others and other trees that dependent on this one tree also coming down or even drying up. And so that is the essence of what we are seeing with the ODM party. They have gotten to a point where they are being told the position right in front of their faces, but they still live under this particular illusion that there is a mass somewhere that they can address when these particular individuals who are addressing them back directly do not exist, and that mass is still in their backyard. But everything shows you a very weak political party that is coming to an end from an higher structure. And so it's very, very important to do what Oburu said a few days ago, call for a national delegates convention and listen to the people. Listen to them, let them make a decision on the party moving forward on their own, and after that then whatever they say concerning that party becomes the party position. But do not hold into this particular party politics at this level. It will harm the party more than it will do the party good moving into 2027. Okay, so for those of you who are interested in hearing what Oburu said, this is what he said.
Wananchi wa Kibera, hamjambo. ODM. Okuena tulumunda. Wena tulumunda losi.
Of course. Not worth your time, right? Nothing substantive. It was just a hitchback of give me room to speak, give me space to speak, leave the party leader to speak. ODM being shouted in certain ways that actually do not sound as the spirit of the party. Let us know in the comment section. Perhaps you're a diehard of the ODM party and you support the broad-based government, but is this the candidate that you want to negotiate for you in that table come 2027? And if yes, will he still keep all the aspirations of yourself and of the party fit in that negotiation table? Let us know there. But if you're also a diehard member of the party and you believe that other sound voices like the voices of Sifuna, the voices of Babu that are now calling for a strong Joshua to take it over from Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, that's the late Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya, and to take it over from this particular leadership that Raila had invested in these young people, so that the ODM can steer itself strongly moving into 2027 and beyond with the good mindset, with the strong negotiation skills, and with the young youth who are still strong enough to take it into that particular direction. Please let us also know in the comment section. But as it stands, that was the engagement of what came out of the ODM party in Kamukunji and Kibera yesterday. A very, very sad scenario to see, witnessing the party that has lived its life beyond the 20 years of democracy in this particular country, fronting a candidate in one, but in the other three as part of a coalition, and being the only party in the East Central part of Africa with structures and with that particular longevity and with that particular consistency, now being the hands of such individuals into 2027 race. Honorable Babu Owino said something even before we go into this episode, just for the purposes of this. He said something very, very important while at Citizen. He said that, you know, when you're looking at the ODM party, you need to look at the ODM party in terms of its strength now and in terms of its strength into the future. And the strength of into the future needs to be created first by the will of the people. people. So you have to let the people decide who do they want, of course, to move into the future. And while you're calling for that particular move, you have to listen to the people. Do they want a strong Joshua? Do they want a parachuted Joshua? Or do they want a Joshua who is the age mate of the Moses that has actually succumbed? So the youth old issue is witnessing its first fracture in the ODM party. We hope that its success within the ODM party will now reshape the inclusion of the younger people in decisions when it comes to the nation at large, but will also include the voices of the younger people being the steering and the decision-making voices for a big conglomerate, including the ODM party kind, into 2027 and beyond. And this is because they have been tried and found fit within their own places of capability, within their own constituencies, and they're showing a trend that the elder members of the society have not provided until this time. That's why they're calling for the party to actually make a decision looking in that particular direction to honor the spirit of Raila Odinga that they believe would be happy with a young Joshua taking over rather than an age mate of Moses trying to identify as a youth consistently but beating that odd with age. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure recapping for you what went down in Kibera, of course, as a result of the ODM party. Catch us here at the People's Mirror as we recap for you what next with this Nyota program. But other than that, is it Singapore or is it Canaan?